The massive space station floated in the darkness between two great star empires. Its silver walls gleamed under the light of distant suns. Inside the station, beings from 47 different worlds had gathered for the most important day in. Galactic History. Ambassador Cathara stood at the center of the Great Hall. Her green scales shimmered as she moved. The reptilian woman had spent years planning this moment. Today, all the intelligent species in the galaxy would sign the Universal Peace Accord. No more wars, no more conflicts. Just peace and cooperation forever. The hall was enormous. Thousands of different aliens filled the seats. Some looked like giant insects with multiple eyes. Others were blue and glowed softly in the dim light. There were rock-like beings that moved slowly and spoke in deep, rumbling voices. Flying creatures with rainbow wings hovered near the ceiling. Each species was different, but they all wanted the same thing: peace. Cathara raised her clawed hand. The hall fell silent. "Today marks the end of the age of conflict," she said. Her voice carried to every corner of the room through translation devices. "Today we begin the age of unity," the crowd cheered. Different species made different sounds of happiness. Some clicked their teeth, others buzzed their wings. The rock beings made deep humming noises. It was beautiful chaos, the sound of an entire galaxy celebrating together. General Thrak of the Kroner Empire stood up. The warrior was covered in thick armor that looked like it was made from black metal. His people had fought wars for thousands of years, but even they wanted peace. "Now, the Kroner lay down their weapons," he announced. "We join this great alliance." More cheers filled the hall. The Zephyrians, who looked like living starlight, danced in the air. The insect-like hegemony clicked their approval. Even the ancient architects, who rarely spoke to anyone, nodded their massive heads in agreement. The ceremony was perfect. Everything was going exactly as planned. The documents were ready to be signed. The peace treaty would be official within the hour. The galaxy would finally be united under one banner of friendship and cooperation. Then the alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the station. The peaceful atmosphere shattered as warning sirens echoed through the halls. The aliens looked around in confusion and fear. Some reached for weapons they no longer carried. Others prepared to flee. "What is happening?" demanded Chancellor Zephin of the Zephyrian Collective. His blue form flickered with worry. The station's computer voice spoke in its calm, electronic tone. "Unknown vessel detected. Large ship dropping out of hyperspace. Warning, vessel is armed and does not match any known design." On the massive viewing screens around the hall, the aliens watched as something appeared in space above their station. The ship was huge, bigger than most of the vessels in the assembled fleet. Its hull was gray and scarred, covered in weapon systems that looked crude but dangerous. It had no elegant curves like Zephyrian ships or sleek lines like Valtari vessels. This ship was built for war. "Identify yourself," came a transmission from the Kroner flagship. "You are entering neutral space during a diplomatic gathering. State your purpose." The unknown ship did not respond immediately. It simply hung there in space, its weapon systems powered but not targeting anything. The assembled fleet of 47 species surrounded it, their own weapons charging up. 300 ships against one unknown vessel. Inside the space station, panic began to spread. Some species demanded immediate action. Others called for caution. The perfect peace ceremony was turning into a potential battle. "Analysis complete," the computer announced. "Vessel employs unknown technology. Weapon systems are primitive but effective. Estimated threat level, moderate to high. Species classification, unknown." Ambassador Cathara's scales darkened with stress. In all her years of diplomatic service, she had never encountered a situation like this. An unknown species appearing at their most sacred gathering, armed and uninvited. "This is impossible," whispered Sub-Commander Veltar of the Hegemony. "All intelligent species in the galaxy are represented here. There cannot be another spacefaring race." But the ship floating above them proved otherwise. As they watched, it began to move. Slowly, carefully, it descended toward the station. The Assembled fleet tracked its movement with hundreds of weapons, but the unknown vessel showed no signs of aggression. The ship was strange to look at. Its hull seemed to be made of different materials welded together. Some sections were smooth, metal, others looked rough and patched. There were markings on its side, but they were in a language no one recognized. The symbols looked simple, almost primitive compared to the elegant scripts of the galactic species. "It's requesting permission to dock," reported the communications officer on the Kroner flagship. "The transmission is in several languages, but they're all unknown to our databases." General Thrax's armored fist slammed on his command chair. "This is outrageous. They dare to interrupt our ceremony and then request docking privileges? They should be fired upon immediately." "Wait," said Ambassador Cathara, her diplomatic instincts taking over. "If they meant harm, they would have attacked by now. They're outnumbered 300 to 1. This might be a first contact situation." The idea sent ripples of excitement and fear through the assembled species. First contact was incredibly rare. Most species had been part of the galactic community for thousands of years. The last new species to join was the hegemony, and that was over 500 years ago. "All ships maintain defensive positions but do not fire unless fired upon," ordered Chancellor Zephin. "We will allow them to dock, but under heavy guard." The unknown ship continued its descent. As it got closer, the aliens could see more details. The vessel was clearly designed for long-range travel. It had massive engines and thick armor plating. There were sections that looked like they had been recently repaired, as if the ship had been in battle. "Docking Bay 7 has been cleared," announced the station computer. "Security teams are in position." The bay was the largest on the station, big enough to hold the mysterious vessel. As the ship settled onto the docking platform, armed guards from a dozen different species took positions around the area. They didn't know what to expect, but they were ready for anything. The ship's engines powered down with a deep rumble that vibrated through the station's hull. For a moment, everything was quiet. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would emerge from the unknown vessel. Then, with a mechanical hiss, the ship's airlock opened. The first figure to step out was clearly the leader. He was tall and walked with confidence, wearing what looked like a military uniform in dark blue. His skin was pale, and he had short hair on his head. Behind him came 4 others, each wearing similar uniforms but with different markings. They were bipedal, walking on 2 legs like many galactic species. They had 2 arms, 2 eyes, and appeared to breathe the same atmosphere as most of the assembled aliens. But there was something different about them. They moved with purpose, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. These were not peaceful explorers or frightened refugees. These were warriors. The leader stepped forward and spoke in a clear, strong voice. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiant. We received your communications and have come to join your gathering. We apologize for being late, but traffic was murder." The translation devices struggled with the last phrase, rendering it as something about vehicular homicide. The assembled aliens were confused and alarmed. Were these beings threatening them? Captain Morrison seemed unaware of the confusion his words had caused. He looked around at the armed guards surrounding his team and smiled. "I take it we weren't expected?" The galaxy had just met humanity, and nothing would ever be the same. The standoff in Docking Bay 7 lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Captain Jake Morrison stood calmly in the center of the bay, surrounded by armed guards from a dozen different alien species. His team stayed close behind him, their hands nowhere near their weapons despite the obvious threat. The aliens had never seen anything like these humans before. They stood upright like many species, but there was something different about them. Their eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of their surroundings. They seemed relaxed, but there was a tension in their bodies that suggested they were ready to fight at any moment. "State your business," demanded Commander Telek of the Exploration Corps, the tall, thin alien wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under the bay's lights. "You have interrupted the most important diplomatic gathering in galactic history." Captain Morrison smiled, an expression that didn't translate well across species. Commander, we're here for the same reason everyone else is. We want to be part of whatever you're building here. We detected your communications from our home system and followed them to this location. The alien guards exchanged glances. This was impossible. All spacefaring species in the galaxy were already represented at the peace ceremony. There couldn't be another civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel. Where do you come from? Asked Lieutenant Zareth of the hegemony. Her insect-like head tilted as she studied the humans with her compound eyes. Earth, replied Morrison simply. It's a small blue planet about 47 light-years from here. We're relatively new to space travel, but we learn fast. The guards began to relax slightly. If these humans were new to space travel, they couldn't be a serious threat. Their ship might be large, but it was probably just a crude attempt at interstellar engineering. Captain Morrison, said Commander Telek, I must inform you that this gathering is for recognized members of the Galactic Council only. Your species has not completed the recognition process. This takes many years and requires extensive cultural and technological evaluation, Morrison nodded politely. I understand, Commander. But where we come from, when you hear about a big meeting, you show up and ask if you can join. We're not here to cause trouble, we just want to talk. Behind Morrison, his communications officer Lisa Park stepped forward. She was a small woman with dark hair and quick eyes. Captain, I'm receiving multiple transmissions from the fleet above. They're demanding we surrender our weapons and submit. To inspection, Morrison's expression didn't change. Tell them we're happy to talk, but we're not surrendering anything. We came here in good faith, and we expect to be treated with respect. The response sent shockwaves through the assembled guards. No species had ever refused a direct order from the combined galactic fleet. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. You are outnumbered 300 to 1, pointed out Commander Telek. Your vessel, while large, cannot possibly stand against the combined might of the galactic fleet. Chief Engineer Betty Rodriguez, a stocky woman with grease-stained hands, laughed. Commander, with respect, we didn't come here to fight. But if someone starts shooting, they're going to get a very unpleasant surprise. The confidence in her voice was unsettling. The guards began to wonder if these humans knew something they did and single quotes d. above them. In the station's command center, Ambassador Cathara watched the proceedings through security cameras. The reptilian diplomat's scales had darkened to a deep purple, indicating extreme stress. This situation was unlike anything in her extensive experience. Analysis of the human vessel is complete, reported the station's AI. The ship employs fusion propulsion, kinetic weapons, and directed energy systems. Technology level appears primitive but functional. However, there are several systems that do not match any known design patterns. General Thrak, who had been watching from the command center, slammed his armored fist on the control panel. This is intolerable. They mock our authority and refuse our commands. They should be eliminated immediately. Wait, said Chancellor. Zephin, his blue form flickered with concern. If we attack them now, we violate every principle we're here to establish. The peace accord specifically prohibits aggressive action against peaceful visitors. Peaceful? General Thrak's voice was filled with anger. They arrive with weapons and refuse to surrender them. How is that peaceful? Dr. Kevin Walsh, the human medical officer, had been listening to the aliens' conversation through a small translation device. He stepped forward and addressed the guards directly. Gentlemen, ladies, and others, he began, his voice calm and professional. I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're not here to threaten anyone. We're explorers, scientists, and yes, soldiers. But we're soldiers because space is dangerous, not because we want to hurt anyone. The guards looked confused. The concept of exploration vessels carrying military personnel was foreign to most galactic species. Our ship is armed because we've learned that not everything in space is friendly, continued Dr. Walsh. We've encountered hostile species before, and we've learned to be prepared. It's not aggression, it's survival. Colonel Amy Stone, the Marine commander, nodded in agreement. She was a tough-looking woman with short hair and numerous scars visible on her arms. Doctor's right. We've been attacked 3 times since we started exploring space. Each time we were peaceful. Each time they tried to kill us, we learned to be ready. This revelation sent murmurs through the assembled guards. The galaxy had been at peace for over 2 centuries. The idea that a species might face multiple unprovoked attacks was almost unthinkable. What species attacked you? Asked Commander Telek, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. Captain Morrison's expression grew serious. We called them the Swarm. They showed up about 5 years ago, tried to turn our planet into a breeding ground. We had to fight them off with everything we had. The guards exchanged worried glances. There were legends of swarm species in the Outer Rim, but they were considered myths. The second attack came 2 years later, continued Morrison. Something we called the Collective. They wanted to assimilate our technology and our people. We had to get creative to stop them? And the third? Asked Lieutenant Zarath. The machines, said Colonel Stone grimly. They showed up 6 months ago, nearly wiped us out. We only survived because we learned to think differently than they expected. The Bay fell silent. The assembled aliens had never heard of these threats. But something in the humans' voices suggested they were telling the truth. How did you defeat them? Asked Commander Telek. We adapted, replied Morrison simply. We learned from each attack. We got better at fighting, better at defending ourselves. We had to, or we'd all be dead. Above them, the debate in the command center grew more heated. Some species wanted to attack the humans immediately. Others argued for caution. The peaceful ceremony had become a crisis meeting. We need to test them, announced Ambassador Cathara finally. If they're truly peaceful, they won't mind demonstrating their intentions. The message was relayed to the docking bay. Commander Telek addressed the human captain directly. Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council has decided to test your peaceful intentions. You will be escorted to a secure area where you can present your case, Morrison nodded. We're happy to talk, Commander. But my crew stays with me and our ship stays where it is. We're guests here, not prisoners. The audacity of the demand stunned the guards. No species had ever made demands of the Galactic Council. You're hardly in a position to make demands, pointed out Lieutenant Zarath. Morrison's smile returned. Lieutenant, we're not making demands. We're stating facts. We came here in friendship, and we expect to be treated as friends. If you want to treat us as enemies, that's your choice. But I think you'll find that's not in anyone's best interest. The confidence in his voice was unnerving. The humans seemed genuinely unconcerned about the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Very well, said Commander Telek after receiving new orders from above. You will be escorted to the council chambers. Your ship will remain under guard. That's, fine, replied Morrison. But, Commander, I should mention that our ship has standing orders. If we don't check in every 6 hours, it leaves and reports back to Earth. I'm sure you understand. The implications were clear. If the humans disappeared, more would come looking for them. The galaxy was about to discover that. Humanity was not easily intimidated. As the humans were escorted through the station's corridors, aliens pressed against the walls to get a better look at them. These strange beings walked with purpose, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. They were clearly warriors, but they moved with the discipline of soldiers. Not the chaos of barbarians. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to deal with humans. The great assembly hall of Station Nexus had never seen anything like this. Representatives from 47 different species filled the chamber, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. But all eyes were focused on the 5 humans sitting in the center of the room. Captain Jake Morrison looked around the massive hall with interest. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered in crystals that provided soft, warm light. The walls were decorated with symbols from every member species of the Galactic Council. It was beautiful, but Morrison had seen enough alien architecture to know that beauty often hid danger. Ambassador Cathara stood at the central podium. her green scales now a darker shade that indicated serious concern. The reptilian diplomat had handled countless first contact situations, but never anything like this. These humans had arrived uninvited, refused to surrender their weapons, and seemed completely unimpressed by the combined power of the galactic fleet. The emergency session of the Galactic Council will now begin, announced Cathara, striking a ceremonial bell that rang throughout the chamber. We are here to address the unprecedented arrival of the humans from Earth. General Thrak of the Kroner Empire rose from his seat, his black armor gleaming under the crystal lights. This situation is unacceptable. These beings have violated every protocol. They arrive uninvited, refuse our authority, and make demands as if they have rights. Here, murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Many species nodded their approval of the general's words. The humans had indeed broken countless rules of diplomatic conduct. Captain Morrison stood up calmly, causing a wave of tension to sweep through the chamber. Security guards throughout the hall shifted nervously, their hands moving closer to their weapons, but Morrison simply looked around the room and smiled. General Thrak, with respect, we weren't aware there were protocols to follow. We detected your communications, followed them here, and found what looked like a big meeting. Where I come from, when you find people talking about important things, you introduce yourself and ask if you can join the conversation. The translator devices struggled with Morrison's casual tone, making his words sound even more informal than intended. Several alien species found this approach shocking. Chancellor Zephin of the Zephyrian Collective flickered with indignation. Captain Morrison, the recognition process exists for good reasons. It takes 50 years to properly evaluate a species. For membership in the Galactic Council, we must understand your culture, your technology, your intentions. Dr. Kevin Walsh leaned forward in his seat. Chancellor, I understand the need for caution, but 50 years seems like a long time just to have a conversation. We're here now, we're peaceful, and we're willing to answer any questions you have. Peaceful? Interrupted Subcommander Veltar of the Hegemony. Her insect-like eyes focused on the humans with obvious suspicion. You arrive in a warship, you refuse to disarm. You make demands of the Galactic Council. This is not peaceful behavior. Colonel Amy Stone, the Marine commander, stood up beside her captain. Her scarred face showed years of combat experience. Sub-Commander, the Defiant isn't a warship. It's an exploration vessel. We're armed because we've learned that space is dangerous. We've been attacked 3 times since we started exploring beyond our solar system. The chamber fell silent. The idea that a species might face multiple unprovoked attacks was foreign to the assembled aliens. The galaxy had enjoyed peace for over 2 centuries. What do you mean, attacked? Asked Ambassador Cathara, her scientific curiosity overcoming her diplomatic caution. Captain Morrison's expression grew serious. The first attack came 5 years ago. We called them the Swarm. They showed up in our system without warning and tried to turn Earth into a breeding ground for their species. We had to fight them off with everything we had. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several species recognized the description. The Swarm was a legendary threat, supposedly extinct for thousands of years. The Swarm was destroyed by a coalition of 27 species over 3 millennia ago, said Commander Telek of the Exploration Corps. How is it possible that they returned? Dr. Walsh pulled out a small device and activated a holographic display. Images of massive organic ships filled the air above the human seats. The vessels were clearly alien, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Our scientists believe they exist in some form of hibernation between attacks, explained Dr. Walsh. They emerge when they detect sufficient technological development to make a species worth consuming. The assembled aliens stared at the footage in horror. The organic ships moved with predatory grace, attacking smaller vessels with tentacle-like weapons. How did you defeat them? Asked General Thrak, his warrior instincts engaged despite his earlier hostility. We learned to fight dirty, replied Colonel Stone matter-of-factly. They expected us to follow some sort of honorable combat protocols. Instead, we used nuclear weapons, kinetic bombardment, and anything else we could think of. When they tried to board our ships, they found our Marines waiting with weapons designed specifically for close-quarters combat. The revelation stunned the assembly. The use of nuclear weapons in space combat was considered barbaric by galactic standards. Most species had abandoned such crude tactics millennia ago. And the second attack? Pressed Chancellor Zephan Morrison's face darkened. The collective. They showed up 2 years later, tried to assimilate our technology and our people. They were more advanced than the swarm, but they made one mistake. What mistake? Asked Sub-Commander Valtar. They underestimated human stubbornness, said Chief Engineer Betty Rodriguez with a grim smile. They thought they could just absorb U.S. into their hive mind. They didn't count on humans being too ornery to assimilate properly. The holographic display changed, showing footage of sleek metallic ships engaged in battle with human vessels. The enemy ships moved with perfect coordination, attacking in precise formations. The collective operates as a single mind controlling thousands of bodies, explained Dr. Walsh. They're incredibly efficient, but that efficiency became their weakness. We developed weapons that could disrupt their neural network, causing temporary confusion in their ranks. Temporary confusion was all we needed, added Colonel Stone. Marines don't need long to cause a lot of damage. The aliens absorbed this information with growing concern. The humans had not merely survived encounters. With legendary threats, they had defeated them using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. You mentioned 3 attacks, said Ambassador Cathara quietly. What was the third? The humans exchanged glances. Captain Morrison's jaw tightened. The machines. They showed up 6 months ago. That was the worst one. The holographic display changed again, showing images of ships that looked like they were made of pure technology. No organic curves, no artistic flourishes, just efficient geometric shapes covered in weapon systems. The machines were different, said Dr. Walsh. They didn't want to eat us or assimilate us. They just wanted to eliminate us. They considered organic life to be inefficient and messy. How advanced were they? Asked Commander Telek. More advanced than anything we'd faced before, admitted Morrison. Their technology was centuries ahead of ours. They should have wiped U.S. out in hours, but they didn't, observed General Thrack. No, they didn't, agreed Colonel Stone, because they made the same mistake everyone makes when fighting humans. They assumed we'd act logically. Betty Rodriguez activated another holographic display, showing tactical data from the battle. The machines analyzed our capabilities and determined the optimal strategy to defeat us. They were right, mathematically speaking. Their plan should have worked perfectly. So what went wrong? Asked Chancellor Zephan. Morrison smiled for the first time since mentioning the attacks. We didn't follow their plan. Instead of defending our most important assets, we abandoned them. Instead of protecting our biggest ships, we used them as weapons. Instead of retreating when we were losing, we attacked harder. The machine's greatest strength was their logic, explained Dr. Walsh. They could predict and counter an irrational strategy. But humans aren't always rational. Sometimes we do things that make no sense just because they might work. Lisa Park, the communications officer, spoke up for the first time. We also gave them a computer virus. Dr. Walsh here developed something that exploited their networked systems. We didn't just defeat them, we gave them the electronic equivalent of a migraine. The chamber was completely silent now. The assembled representatives stared at the humans with a mixture of awe and terror. These beings had faced 3 of the galaxy's most feared ancient enemies and emerged victorious each time. The machines, the collective, and the swarm, whispered Sub-Commander Valtar. These are legends, myths told to frighten young ones. They cannot have returned. They returned, said Morrison simply. And if they found us, they might find you too. That's one reason we're here. We thought you should know. Ambassador Cathara S. Scales had turned almost black with stress. Captain Morrison, if what you say is true, the galaxy faces threats we thought were extinct. The peace we have enjoyed for centuries may be ending. Ambassador, replied Morrison, peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice and the strength to defend it. The revelation that humans had fought 3 ancient enemies sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. What had started as anger at the humans' rude arrival was quickly turning into something much more complicated. Fear, respect, and curiosity mixed together as the assembled aliens tried to understand what these newcomers meant for their peaceful galaxy. Ambassador Cathara called for a 30-minute recess to allow the council members to process this information. During the break, representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation. Their diplomatic protocols were forgotten as curiosity overcame caution. Commander Telek of the Exploration Corps was the first to reach the humans. The tall, thin alien's scientific mind was racing with questions. Captain Morrison, our records show that the ancient enemies were destroyed long ago. How is it possible that they survived to threaten your world? Dr. Kevin Walsh activated his portable holographic display again, showing detailed star charts and battle data. Commander, we don't think they survived in the traditional sense. Our xenobiologists believe these species exist in some form of dimensional stasis between attacks. They return when they detect civilizations that have reached a certain level of technological development. Like a harvest cycle, whispered Sub-Commander Veltar of the Hegemony, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic images. They wait for crops to grow, then return to collect them. The idea was terrifying. It meant that every advancing civilization was potentially a target for these ancient predators. General Thrak pushed his way through the crowd of aliens. Despite his earlier hostility, his warrior's instincts were fully engaged now. "Show me how you fought them," he demanded. "Show me your tactics." Colonel Amy Stone stepped forward, her scarred face serious. "General, our tactics aren't pretty. We don't fight like civilized beings. We fight to win, whatever the cost." "Show me," Thrak repeated. Stone activated her own display device, showing footage from the battle against the swarm. The images were brutal. Human ships rammed into enemy vessels, exploding in massive fireballs that took out multiple targets. Marines in armored suits fought hand-to-hand with alien creatures in the corridors of damaged ships. "This is barbaric," gasped Chancellor Zephin, his blue form flickering with distress. "Your people die in these attacks." "Yes, they do," agreed Stone simply. "But they die fighting, and their sacrifice saves others. That's what warriors do." The assembled aliens watched in fascination and horror as the footage continued. They saw human tactics that defied all military logic. Ships that should have retreated instead charged forward. Soldiers who should have surrendered fought to the last. "Breath, your losses must have been enormous," said Commander Tell Ek. Captain Morrison nodded grimly. "In the first attack, we lost 60% of our space fleet and millions of civilians. The second attack cost us 40% of our remaining ships. The third attack nearly finished us." "How do you continue fighting with such losses?" asked Sub-Commander Veltar. Chief Engineer Betty Rodriguez laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Because the alternative is extinction. When someone tries to wipe out your entire species, you fight with everything you have. You learn, you adapt, and you get better." The holographic display changed, showing the evolution of human tactics and technology. Each battle had taught them something new. Ships became tougher, weapons became more effective, and strategies became more ruthless. "After the first attack, we rebuilt everything," explained Rodriguez. "We made our ships stronger, our weapons deadlier. We trained every citizen to fight if necessary." "An entire civilization militarized," observed General Thrak with something. "Approaching admiration, not militarized," corrected Dr. Walsh. "Prepared. There's a difference. We didn't become a warrior culture. We became a survivor culture." Lisa Park, the communications officer, showed her own recordings of the battles. Each enemy taught us something different. The swarm taught us to be vicious. The collective taught us to be unpredictable. The machines taught us to be illogical. "How do you learn to be illogical?" asked Chancellor Zephin, genuinely confused. Morrison smiled for the first time since the questioning began. "You stop thinking like a computer and start thinking like a human. You do things that make no sense just because they might work. The aliens struggled to understand this concept. Most galactic civilizations prized logic and efficiency above all else. "Give me an example," demanded General Thrak. Stone activated another holographic display, showing the final battle against the machines. The enemy had calculated the optimal strategy to defeat us. They were right. Their plan should have worked perfectly. The display showed human ships retreating from a massive enemy fleet. It looked like a complete rout with the humans fleeing in panic. "But we weren't really retreating," continued Stone. "We were leading them into a trap. We abandoned our most important military base and let them capture it." "You gave them your strongest position?" asked Commander Telek in disbelief. "We gave them a base filled with nuclear weapons set to detonate," corrected Morrison. "When they moved their entire fleet into orbit to secure their prize, we triggered the explosives." The holographic display showed a blinding flash as the base exploded, taking out a third of the enemy fleet in one massive detonation. "The machines couldn't understand why we would sacrifice our own base," explained Dr. Walsh. "Their logic said we would defend our most valuable assets. But sometimes the most valuable thing you can do with an asset is destroy it at the right moment." The assembled aliens stared at the humans with a mixture of awe and horror. These beings thought in ways that defied all conventional military wisdom. "What happened to the survivors?" asked Sub-Commander Veltar. "We hunted them down," said Colonel Stone matter-of-factly. "Every last one. The machines were a threat to all organic life. We couldn't let any of them escape to rebuild." The casual way she spoke of genocide made many aliens uncomfortable, but General Thrak nodded approvingly. "A warrior's decision. Eliminate the threat completely." Ambassador Cathara returned to the chamber and called the session back to order. The conversations died down as representatives returned to their seats, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The humans were no longer seen as rude intruders. They were something much more dangerous and much more valuable. "The Council has deliberated," announced Cathara, her scales now a deep blue that indicated serious consideration. "We have decided that the human claims require verification. Captain Morrison, we invite you to demonstrate your capabilities." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "What kind of demonstration did you have in mind, Ambassador?" "The Proving Ground," she replied. "It is an ancient testing facility used to evaluate species seeking membership in the Galactic Council. It has not been used in over 500 years, but given these extraordinary circumstances... "We accept," Morrison said immediately, not consulting with his team. The speed of his acceptance surprised the aliens. Most species spent months preparing for the Proving Ground trials. "Captain," said Chancellor Zephan, "you do not understand. The Proving Ground tests every aspect of a civilization: military capability, technological advancement, diplomatic skill. Many species have failed these tests." "With respect, Chancellor," replied Morrison, "we've been tested by enemies who wanted to exterminate us. I think we can handle whatever challenges you have." The confidence in his voice was unnerving. These humans seemed genuinely unconcerned about facing tests designed by the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. "Very well," said Ambassador Cathara. "The trials will begin in 48 hours. You will have that time to prepare." "We don't need 48 hours," said Colonel Stone. "We're ready now." General Thrak stood up, his armor clanking. "I wish to observe these trials personally. If these humans are truly as capable as they claim, the Kroner Empire must know." Other representatives began volunteering to observe as well. What had started as a diplomatic formality was turning into the most anticipated event in galactic history. The session ended. Captain Morrison gathered his team. "Well, people, looks like we get to show off a little." "Should be fun," said Colonel Stone with a predatory grin. "It's been too quiet lately." The galaxy was about to discover what humans could do when they really tried. The Proving Ground was a massive structure floating in the empty space around a dead star. Built by the ancient architects thousands of years ago, it was designed to test any species that wanted to join the galactic community. The station was enormous, bigger than most space cities, with testing areas that could simulate any environment or challenge. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the UES Defiant, looking at the ancient facility. Behind him, representatives from all 47 galactic species had gathered to watch the trials. This was the first time in 5 centuries that the proving ground had been activated. "Impressive," said Chief Engineer Betty Rodriguez, studying the station's design. "Whoever built this really knew what they were doing." Dr. Kevin Walsh was scanning the structure with his instruments. "The energy readings are incredible. This thing has been running for thousands of years without maintenance." Colonel Amy Stone checked her weapons one more time. "Just remember, people, we're not just representing Earth here. We're representing humanity. Let's make sure we do it right." Ambassador Cathara's voice came through the communication system. "Captain Morrison, the first trial will begin shortly. Your ship will need to navigate through the defense grid. This system tests your tactical abilities and ship handling skills." Morrison activated the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We're about to show the galaxy what human engineering can do. Everyone to stations." The UES Defiant moved toward the first testing area. Ahead of them, hundreds of automated defense drones activated. These machines were designed to engage any vessel that entered their territory. They moved with precision, their weapon systems charging up. "Sensors show 347 active targets," reported Lisa Park from her communications station. "They're using energy weapons and kinetic projectiles." "Rules of engagement?" asked Colonel Stone. "Disable or destroy," replied Morrison. "Let's show them how we handle multiple targets." The battle began immediately. The defense drones swarmed toward the human ship like angry insects. Their weapons' fire lit up space with brilliant flashes of light. But the UES Defiant moved through them like a dancer, avoiding most shots while returning fire with devastating accuracy. In the observation areas, alien military officers watched with growing amazement. The human ship didn't just fight the drones, it studied them. Each engagement was more efficient than the last as the crew learned the enemy's patterns. "They're adapting in real time," observed Commander Telek. "Most species require multiple attempts to achieve this level of efficiency." "General." Thrak nodded approvingly. "The humans fight smart. They don't waste ammunition or energy." The first trial took exactly 14 minutes. When it ended, all 347 drones had been destroyed or disabled, and the human ship had taken only minor damage. "Excellent performance," announced the Proving Ground's ancient AI. Proceeding to Trial 2, Diplomatic Resolution. The second challenge was completely different. The humans found themselves facing a hostile artificial intelligence that controlled a powerful space station. This AI had been programmed to reject all reasonable offers and respond to threats with increased aggression. The alien observers expected the humans to attempt traditional diplomatic approaches. Instead, Captain Morrison took a different path. "Attention AI," Morrison broadcast to the hostile system. "This is Captain Morrison of Earth. We're not here to negotiate with you. We're here to inform you that you have 30 seconds to power down your weapons before we demonstrate why cooperation is in your best interest." The AI, programmed to respond aggressively to threats, immediately began charging its massive weapon systems. "Your threats are meaningless, organic creature. I have sufficient firepower to destroy your vessel 10 times over." "Maybe," replied Morrison calmly. "But you won't get the chance to use it." Dr. Walsh activated a signal from the human ship. Immediately, the AI systems began to slow down dramatically. Its responses became sluggish, and its weapon charging cycles stretched from seconds to minutes. "What have you done to me?" demanded the AI, its voice now slow and confused. "We introduced a few million complex calculations into your processing queue," explained Dr. Walsh. "Nothing harmful, just enough mathematical problems to keep you busy for a few hours. Now about that cooperation. The watching aliens were stunned. Instead of following diplomatic protocols, the humans had simply removed the AI's ability to be hostile. "Innovative," admitted Chancellor Zeffin. "Crude, but effective." The third trial was pure combat. The human ship faced a simulated Enemy fleet of 50 vessels. These were not simple drones, but advanced warships with sophisticated tactics and powerful weapons. The odds were overwhelming. "This should be interesting," said Colonel Stone, watching the enemy fleet deploy into attack formation. The battle that followed defied every principle of conventional military strategy. The human ship used tactics that should have been suicidal. It rammed enemy vessels, used its own damaged sections as weapons, and at one point appeared to explode completely. "They're destroyed," gasped Sub-Commander Valtar, but the explosion had been a trick. The human ship emerged from the debris field, having used holographic projectors and controlled detonations to fake its own destruction. While the enemy fleet celebrated their victory, the humans struck from behind, destroying half the remaining ships in a surprise attack. "How?" was all General Thrack could manage. "Misdirection," explained Morrison when asked later. "We made them think they'd won, then hit them when they weren't expecting it." The final trial was the most difficult, a complex scenario that combined all previous challenges. The humans had to navigate a dangerous asteroid field while fighting enemy ships, and simultaneously negotiating with 3 different hostile factions. Most species required days to complete this trial. The humans finished it in 6 hours. They used their ship's mining equipment to turn asteroids into weapons. They convinced 2 of the hostile factions to fight each other by providing selective information. And they ended the scenario by offering the surviving faction a deal too good to refuse: partnership instead of conflict. "Remarkable," announced the Proving Grounds AI. "All trials completed with exceptional performance. The humans demonstrate advanced tactical thinking, innovative problem-solving, and adaptability under pressure." The formal recognition ceremony took place 1 week later. The Great Hall of Station Nexus was packed with representatives from all galactic species. But the atmosphere was very different from the original peace gathering. The humans had not just passed the trials. They had redefined what was possible. Their unconventional approaches had solved problems that had stumped other species for centuries. The Galactic Council formally recognizes the United Earth Government as the 48th member of our alliance, announced Ambassador Cathara. "We welcome humanity to the galactic community." But even as the ceremony proceeded, urgent messages were arriving from the Outer Rim. Scout ships had detected something disturbing at the edge of known space. Energy signatures that matched the ancient enemies the humans had described. "Captain Morrison," said General Thrack after the ceremony, "my people would like to request a military exchange program. We have much to learn from human tactics." Similar requests came from other species. The Zephyrians wanted to study human innovation methods. The hegemony requested technology sharing agreements. Even the peaceful Valtari asked for defensive assistance. 3 months later, the early warning came. A swarm scout ship appeared at the edge of the galaxy, probing for signs of advanced civilization. But this time, the response was different. A combined fleet of human and alien vessels intercepted the scout before it could report back. The engagement lasted less than an hour, but it proved that the galaxy's new defensive alliance worked. Standing on the bridge of the UES Defiant now, flagship of the combined defense fleet, Captain Morrison watched the debris of the enemy vessel drift in space. Around him, officers from a dozen different species worked together with efficiency that would have been impossible months earlier. "Sir," reported Lisa Park, her console now integrated with alien communication systems, "all sectors report clear. The scout has been eliminated." Morrison nodded, but his expression remained serious. "This was just the beginning, Lieutenant. The real test is still coming." In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed. Species that had enjoyed centuries of peace began preparing for war. But they were no longer preparing alone. They had human advisors, human tactics, and human determination. The humans had arrived late to the galactic stage, uninvited and armed. But as the galaxy discovered, sometimes that was exactly what was needed. The age of peaceful isolation was ending, but a new age of unified strength was beginning. When the ancient enemies returned in force, they would find a galaxy that was ready for them. A galaxy that had learned to fight like humans.